This is Sakura. One day she sees a dude having a barbecue party with some gangsters and she kinda likes it. And when she discovers that Rei is in the same class, she gets so warm preparing for her turn to be grilled. Our story begins with Sakura Koji heading back home. As she was looking through the bus window, she was taken aback by seeing someone burning other people alive. So she decided to do what a good citizen would do, forcing the bus driver to stop, reported the issue to a cop of what she found along the way, and took him to the park where she saw the act taking place, only to be surprised that there was nothing left, other than small firesome scorches left by some homeless guy. Even though the cop dismissed the issue as a mere delusion, Sakura Koji couldn't get the issue off her head, especially the face of the black-haired guy she found there. Now that it's a new day, Sakura Koji started it by rolling people at the school's dojo one by one during their Aikido club activity, to which everyone was impressed by her in many ways. After all, she's the top girl in the school. High grades, perfect physique and other things. Of course boys all over school will be falling for her like the simps they are. As always, Sakura Koji didn't care much about that. This time, however, she was spacing out more about that mysterious guy from last night. It only took the arrival of her best friend Aoba that snapped her back into reality. As they reached their homeroom teacher, Sakura Koji was taken aback when she saw that same guy before her very eyes this time. His name is Rei Agami, and he's a transfer student who will start studying in their class today. Aside from Sakura Koji's skepticism towards the guy, other girls were fascinated by his cool appearance and mysterious aura, which is something that Gen Z kids will never get. Once class was over, Sakura Koji couldn't help but cut through the chit-chat this newcomer was having with his classmates, asking him to go outside, not to fight, but to ask him something. This echoed across the school like breaking news on national TV. The girl that every simp in this school is about to confess her feelings to a newcomer student. Or so they thought. In fact, Sakura Koji confronted Agami about what she witnessed last night. Still, Agami dismissed it as some kind of a delusion, suggesting that they try to become friends instead as he was taking his leave. Oblivious to what had been discussed in their conversations, the entire school believed that Agami turned down Sakura Koji's love confession, which caused girls to be disappointed, while the simps took it as a personal grudge against this e-boy. As for Sakura Koji, however, she was not willing to give up on figuring out what Agami had been doing back then, albeit Aoba still believed that Sakura Koji isn't gonna give up on confessing to Agami once again. These thoughts didn't stop her from getting even more frustrated at how girls have been falling for how charming he looks. This obsession turned into outright stalking, as she kept on following every move he makes wherever he goes. Of course, this didn't go unnoticed by her best friend Aoba, who thought that Sakura Koji is just way too into Agami. Once she realized that she lost track of him, Sakura Koji began to panic as she left school to catch him. What she didn't know is that Agami was aware of what she was up to. That evening, Sakura Koji returned to the park where she saw these men disappear, believing that a criminal will always return to his crime scene. While she was waiting for that criminal to arrive, she found that a dog was waiting for her, so she fed her, even though she got frustrated that the dog was too scared of her, so much so that the dog had hidden behind Agami. Unlike her Karen-like behavior towards the dog, Agami was playful with it. Moved by what she saw, Sakura Koji began to talk about the background of this dog, and how it lost its master to a Yakuza gang assaulting him. As frustrated as she was, she didn't seek revenge. Agami, for his part, ensured her that she's free to never forget about that homeless guy, while telling her that there's no need for laws of this country to get revenge. After all, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and evil for evil. Sakura Koji didn't think much of that, laughing that last part off as a code of Hammurabi. Although this is a precursor for what will happen later, Agami was glad that Sakura Koji had finally smiled at him. Elsewhere, the Prime Minister was already monitoring Agami's every move from his office. The next day, Aoba invited both Agami and Sakura Koji for karaoke, which they both have refused, claiming that they have things to take care of. As Agami was done explaining that he works as a trashman as a part-time job, his phone rang. Privately, he was informed of the task he's given, including the fate of Sakura Koji. Speaking of the latter, Sakura Koji got back to the park that evening to take care of the abandoned dog. Just as she was frustrated that the dog wasn't trustful enough of her, she heard the screams of someone being beaten. Being the ultimate ambitious donkey that she is, showed these Yakuza members that she's going to call the cops for them. Sadly for our ambitious donkey, her hopes were crushed when she learned that cops are on their side and that they'll overlook the matter. Their boss came out shortly after, explaining that they're only concerned about their missing friends, to which Sakura Koji remembered the burning incident that took place a few days ago. Hearing this, the Yakuza decided to extract further infos from her by force. Sakura Koji defended herself to the best of her ability, but the sheer number of thugs was too much for her. Just as they were about to finish her off, the dog came out of nowhere to defend Sakura Koji with the very little power she had, only to be beaten down so badly. For better or worse, Agami arrived around the same time, to put an end to the dog's suffering, much to Sakura Koji's horror. With that issue out of the way, Akame removed his glove and began to deal with the G-Falcon members one by one, burning them all effortlessly. Once he was done with them, he went to deal with the girl too, claiming that he was lying about wanting to become friends with her. The next morning, Sakura Koji woke up in her own bedroom, recollecting what had happened last night in horror. As she rushed to check on her parents, they went immediately to hug his daughter since he was so worried about her. After all, they found her sleeping at the front gate of the house, which was concerning to them. Still, they were relieved to see their daughter feeling better, so that's a win. Let's not talk about who was it that carried her all the way back to her house either. We don't want to ruin the mood. On her way to school, Sakura Koji couldn't help but wonder about Agame's definition of justice. Of course, she didn't mention anything about who Akame is, nor about what happened last night. Fortunately for her, her father Gotoko disagreed with Agame's definition of it. By the time Sakura Koji got to the park, she remembered everything that happened, including Agame's attempt to get rid of her. Once she got to school, she was upset to find that Akame was sitting on his desk, smiling at her as if nothing happened. Damn bro, wish I had his composure after causing a disaster. Anyway, before she could say a word, Aoba picked her up out of nowhere to show her something. Still, that didn't stop Sakura Koji from further thinking of what Akame might try to do to her. This got Sakura Koji between a rock and a hard place, as her increasing hostility and suspicion of Akame are about to cost her her friendship with Aoba. Just as she was about to spill the beans about what happened last night in the park, Akame made it clear that her whispers are loud and clear for everyone, including him. As for Sakura Koji, she was worried about Aoba's safety, so much that she didn't allow Akame to lay his gloved hand on her. The scene she caused made the boys think that Akame is a playboy. To make matters worse, Akame further confused Sakura Koji, making her seem further and further in the wrong. Once class was over, Sakura Koji realized that Akame had pulled an Uno reverse on her and began to monitor her instead. As such, she began to ditch Aoba to the point she nearly lost her closest friend for good. Hoping to put an end to this mess she found herself in, Sakura Koji asked Akame if he could walk her home later. This made the entire class go nuts, as girls thought that this will be an after-school date, while the simps lost all hope that they can befriend their beloved school idol. And there's also Aoba, who was sad to think that she's about to lose her best friend. But Sakura Koji went to her, promising that she'll explain everything to her once her problem is over. Elsewhere, a certain red-headed child called Yuki was capturing one Nyanmaru toy after the other, much to everyone's surprise. He only left when he realized that he became broke. He was fortunate enough to even catch a living big Nyanmaru. Except not really, as the person inside came in to inform Yuki, aka Codebreaker 3, of his incoming mission. Now that their day at school is over, Akame stood true to his word, as he walked out of school with Sakura Koji. For her part, she was confident that she took him to the city center, believing that Akame won't dare to pull any funny moves in public, aside from finding her assumptions to be amusing. Akame admitted that he was the one that got rid of the 4 missing people from G-Falcon, as well as the rest of the gang. It's his job after all. Sakura Koji tried to go around his logic left and right, hoping to get him to change his mind, but to no avail, as Akame admitted that he does not have any remorse for his actions and have no will to ever atone for them. Unable to accept his answer for what it is, Sakura Koji called the departing e-boy, so much that she got a little baby to cry, only for Akame yet again to come in and give him the toy that he dropped. But that aside, Sakura Koji tried to persuade the guy to hand himself over to authorities and abide by the law. Akame refused, claiming that law cannot punish people that do not exist such as himself, before threatening to burn her and everyone in the city center. Thankfully, she managed to save herself from that, but not her bag. Horrified by what happened, Sakura Koji ran away, only to find Akame holding her hand. After a failed attempt at finishing her off just like your average shitty horror movie, he tried to ease tensions by pulling her cheeks. After all, he didn't expect Sakura Koji to be such a rare breed, as if she was some kind of a dog or something, before proceeding to explain to her his logic for killing terrible people, making it clear that he'll get rid of her loved ones if she ever dares to spill the beans about what he does. After all, that's his job nature as a code breaker. While Sakura Koji came back home depressed just like your average abused lover, Akame received a call to tell him about his next mission, where he informed his higher-ups that Sakura Koji is immune to his flames. Elsewhere, Yuki arrived at his location to eliminate his target, Codebreaker 1, Hitomi. Yuki pulled the first move in this fight, but Hitomi was not willing to fight him. Instead, he allowed Yukihina to make a smoke screen before they left, leaving Yuki behind to think if Hitomi is going on a killing spree. The next morning, Sakura Koji couldn't understand what Akame was thinking on her way to school, only to find Akame waiting for her. Immediately, Sakura Koji assumed that he's surveilling her, before resorting to ask for his manager. This time, however, she was right. The world is gonna end. Once she was about to open her shoebox at school, she found piles of mails inside from the countless simps inside. She also found herself in need to point out to Aoba that she'll be accompanying Agami more often for the time being, which Aoba was fine with. After all, she was fine with her best friend finding success in her love life, so much so she began to feel jealous. Then suddenly, one of the Simps Club have took a bamboo sword to make him stay away from Sakura Koji. As for how that turned out, it was Sakura Koji that deterred the simp from attacking. For self-explanatory reasons. This has got all girls over the school to be excited, while crushing every hope remaining in the Simps Club and having a hard-on to their beloved Sakura Koji. By the end of their class, a student approached Agami to inform him to go pick his duties list from the students' council, and since he didn't know where it was, Sakura Koji decided to be the one to accompany him there. On their way there, both Agami and Sakura Koji kept on threatening each other until Sakura Koji's vanguards hit some tree branches, except their actual hands, from her tiny senior Nenin that is. If that wasn't irritating enough for Sakura Koji, then Agami's support for Nenin's praise of Sakura Koji's breasts left her in utter disbelief. Since she liked Agami for supporting her, Nenin decided to reveal her biggest secret, which isn't a very dirty one honestly, as it was about her different eyes colors. These eyes seemed familiar for Agami, so much that he was about to burn her alive, if it wasn't for Sakura Koji's intervention that is. Oh, speaking of the familiar face, he received a phone call to tell him about a mission that he'll have to do with Agami, much to his excitement. As for Agami, he got informed of his mission later that day. Once he was done with that, he immediately addressed the poorly hidden Karen to come out, which she did. As she began to approach him in a wary way, as if she was some kind of a stray cat, Agami pulled a pup out of a basket that he had. It turned out that this pup was that of the female dog that he put out of her misery a few days ago. Realizing that the pup is attached to her, Sakura Koji felt bittersweet about that. Later that day, Sakura Koji couldn't help but accompany Agami further in her holy crusade to stop him from being evil. This time, she arrived at an apartment where there were thugs and corrupt officers. There was one problem though. Although the scene was obvious, Sakura Koji still believed that the cops were already dealing with these bad men. She snapped back to reality when the thugs pulled an Uno reverse on them and turned her into the laughingstock of the apartment. As she stood speechless in such a situation, Agami took the initiative by assuming that this is indeed a G-Falcon meeting. Impressed by his mannerism, the boss there suggested that he hire Agami. After seeing the sorry state of the doctor that used to manufacture crack is in a pitiful state, Agami responded by doing the thing. What's the thing? Well, it's self-explanatory. With this issue out of the way, Sakura Koji checked on the rest of the building. She was shocked to find the doctor's daughter completely shattered, wanting to peace out of life for good, a request that Agami was pleased to comply with. He only stopped when she admitted that the girl doesn't want to die, but he reminded her that he'll get back to get her rid of dear life once she becomes brave enough to lose it. Seeing how far was Agami willing to go, Sakura Koji decided to hug him, hoping she'll get his human side to finally react, but to no avail, since Agami thought he's not understood by others nor did he care about that. By the time he left, there was a police car waiting for the two officers from earlier. Once the high official saw Agami coming towards them, he ran away in the car. He tried to contact Hitomi to complain to him about his lack of support, to which Hitomi replied that he made no promises for him. By then, Agami reached back to the officer. Before he could finish off his job, the familiar face from earlier today Toki jumped off of a helicopter to literally destroy the road. That same night, Agami was called by Eden, which is the supreme decision-making body of the code breakers. He was initially praised by the court for his incredible skills and all, even though they didn't like his straight-up personality. Still, they went ahead to inform him of his next target to assassinate, which he responded by burning the puppets they've been talking through, while claiming that it's up to him to accept the mission or not. The next morning, Sakura Koji woke up in front of her house, not knowing how she got here. This time, her parents were not willing to let that slide, since this is the second time this happens. What would Sakura Koji answer with? It's a camping experience, she claimed. Her parents seemed relieved in front of her while she kept on explaining why she had to do this. But behind her back they knew she was lying through her teeth. And yet they decided to let it slide, assuming that she's doing so for the greater good. While Sakura was leaving the house regretting that she had to lie to her parents, she was met with Toki, who came in to pick her up instead of Agami. Toki also kept on trashing Agami's reputation while he was accompanying the girl, by calling him as the worst of the code breakers, as well as a crybaby, much to Sakura Koji's amusement. As she learned more about Agami from Toki, she was getting all the more excited to get Toki to persuade Agami to, while Toki was just trying time and again to flirt with Sakura Koji. Just as he was about to succeed in his endeavor, Agami came out of the bushes to beat the living shit out of Toki for underestimating him. As things kept on escalating from verbal to physical, Sakura Koji got in their way just like your average babushka, bare-handed. While Toki found Sakura Koji's interference to be funny, the latter couldn't help but notice how familiar his eyes looked, which made Toki assume that she was captivated by his good look. On their way to school, Agame insisted that Sakura Koji shouldn't believe in anything that Toki says. Before Sakura Koji could get an answer to any of her questions, Haikyuu invited Sakura Koji to drink tea with him, like the British person he is, which she declined in the same fashion. While she was in class, Sakura Koji saw Toki entering school from her window. This intrigued the girl to get out of class without further ado. In fact, she went to question Toki about what she's doing, to which she learned that the guy came in to check on someone close to him. Yet again, Agame came out of nowhere to accuse him of lying. As the conversation was about to drag out, Professor Kanda came in to kick the intruder out of her school. Toki, however, was quickly able to win her over. After all, who would turn down a student from the most prestigious high school in all of Japan? Oh, Toki thought of that as a casual thing, even though Sakura Koji didn't. With that out of the way, Professor Kanda allowed Toki to go on a school tour. Once class was over, Sakura Koji got turned down by Agame when she asked him to come eat lunch with her. She then proceeded to ask Toki. Although he initially refused, he still relented to Sakura Koji's persistence, much to her class outrage. In fact, Sakura Koji wanted to get Toki to stop killing people, to which he refused. After all, this is the nature of the job of a code breaker. Unexpectedly, Toki couldn't resist letting go of his womanizing side, as he kept on grabbing Sakura Koji's breasts. Fortunately, justice was brought up upon him instantly, just like your typical bad guy in a Damen video. Only then Sakura Koji learned that Toki is Nenin's younger brother. Noticing that Agame is heading toward the school's roof, Sakura Koji followed suit, only to find that Haikyuu is waiting for them in his typical classy style, before Nenin coming out of nowhere to play with Hi-Tan and Mai-Tan. Sakura Koji mentioned to her senior that her younger brother is here, but Nenin denied that she had a sibling in the first place. Yes, code breakers are people that are stripped of their very identity, which is why Toki couldn't bring himself to talk face to face with his older sister. Instead, he was glad to see that she's doing well before leaving school as abruptly as he came. That night, Agame was on his way to work, with Sakura Koji openly stalking him to prevent him from eliminating any more people, while he explained to her along the way the nature of a code breaker's work. Once they got to their destination, they found Toki waiting for them. Being the spontaneous person that she is, Sakura Koji confronted Toki about his past and reasoning for doing what he's doing, which he tried his best to fool around for a bit. Before getting to work with Agame, it was Toki that used his magnetic powers to shut down the alarm system and open the door. Then the code breakers proceeded in getting rid of the building's bodyguards decisively. Before they could take another step further towards the mansion, two new enemies appeared. This time, they have superpowers, and they were not afraid to use them. Toki and Agame were able to repel their attacks easily. Just as the enemy duo were about to attack once again, they ran out of energy, so they decided to run away, with Agame and Toki hot on their tails. But what is the source of this energy that these two guards have been using? As it turned out, the government official that they're defending have been exploiting kids to extract energy out of them. He didn't care what may happen to these poor souls, as long as he can make a profit off of their special abilities. And to ensure his success, he would do anything to stop code breakers from thwarting his plans. Albeit they do work under direct command of the Japanese Prime Minister. This was surprising to Sakura Koji. Still, since neither her nor the code breakers were able to figure out what this politician has been doing, they still had no idea why these two guards have run out of special abilities. Thanks to Puppy, however, our trio didn't take long to figure out what's going on, as they went deeper inside the building, until they reached a lab that was covered in blood. By the time they confirmed what was going on, that politician Tabata Shidru have shown up, admitting to everything that he committed with no remorse whatsoever, and not even the Fury of Eden could persuade him from what he's doing. Ironically, it was the two watchdogs that got offended by Agame and Toki's disrespect for their scumbag boss, much to Sakura Koji's outrage. Agame, on the other hand, did proceed in pressing on the watchdog's buttons until he succeeded in provoking a fight, with him dealing with the water guy, while leaving Toki to protect Sakura Koji and deal with that other watchdog. The fighting began. Toki was having a hard time dealing with his opponent, until Sakura Koji pulled the most Captain Obvious move in anime, pointing out at the bag that the cement guy was having. Noticing this, Toki decided to finally target that heavy bag. Although he couldn't damage it with his magnetic ability at first, he managed to do so by hitting it with every metallic thing in the area. Much to his and Sakura Koji's shock, a kid came out of the bag. Simultaneously, Agame came to the same result after his opponent threw his bag. To add insult to injury, the scumbags didn't even stop at using their powers. They actually killed their siblings before kidnapping them. This triggered both code breakers into taking justice into their own hands. Horrified by his failure, Shidru tried to run away, only for Toki to come in his way. Now it's up to Agame to finish him off. Just as he was about to do so, Shidru's daughter came in. It turned out that Shidru was getting rid of kids in hope of getting a donor for his sick daughter. Despite his desperate self-defense, Toki and Agame couldn't help but keep on seeing what he was doing was wrong. Before Agami could finish the job, Sakura Koji came in to punch the guy, hoping that she'll knock some sense into him. Still, Shizuru fooled her and tried to attack Agami. What makes the whole thing a lot worse is that the whole thing was happening before his own daughter. In the end, it would all be for naught, because Agami was finally able to finish Shizuru off, much to his daughter's fury. She tried to avenge her father with every bit of her strength, but she ended up passing out. For Sakura Koji, even though she did not like Agami's methods, she couldn't deny that he's definitely a hero. Agami, however, opposed this, claiming that he's evil. Outside the facility, Toki intercepted one of the people involved in the case. Before he could get the phone off of his counterpart, the latter got electrocuted into piecing out of life against his will. Although he was dismayed, he instantly figured out that it was Hitomi's doing. For the Prime Minister, it was a crushing disappointment to learn of what Shizuru has been doing. But he was still interested to know from Yukihina if Hitomi is also interested in this powerful children's case. In the news, the death of Shizuru was reported as a freak accident due to smoking in bed. In public, the Prime Minister was expressing his grief and sorrow about the loss of such a hard-working official. But privately, he was glad to see the situation play itself out until Toki arrived. The Prime Minister was glad to see his own flesh and blood coming to meet him. Toki, however, was disgusted by what his father was doing. The latter tried to persuade his son to be a bit more understanding, but Toki remained upset that his father was not willing to let him see Nenin, before abruptly leaving. Elsewhere, Sakura Koji was surprised at how the government covered up for what happened last night. Along the way, they met with Code Breaker 5, Hakyauji Rui. She came in to inform Agami that Eden wants him to escort Sakura Koji. Despite Agami's protest, Rui forced him to abide by the orders. Although she admitted that she's not that much of a fan of Eden, she promised that she'll also help in investigating Sakura Koji, since she's a rare breed, that is. If there's any silver lining that Sakura Koji have seen, it is that Agami got some friends, encouraging him to make friends even at school. For his part, Agami refused to do so, as he believed that would distract him from achieving his objective. By the time they got to class, they both noticed that there's something strange with everyone. Agami in particular grew increasingly uneasy that everyone was looking at him. While Agami's head was already in the cloud, the entire school were growing uneasy about Haikyuu reading some sort of a BDSM novel out loud, much to Professor Kanda's dismay. With the school day over, Agami found himself unable to get his bag out of the classroom due to a certain Sakura Koji blocking his path. As he forced his way into class, he was surprised to learn that everyone was preparing for a surprise party to welcome him to their class. While Sakura Koji kept on telling him later about how the class were looking forward to becoming friends with him, Agami was memorizing everyone's names before resorting to burning the papers that were given to him. Sakura Koji was initially against the burning part, but she was surprised to see that Agami had already memorized everyone's names and interests. Simultaneously, Toki was walking around the city until he felt a sharp pain in his chest. Meanwhile, Hitomi and Yukihina were setting up their last touches for a massive operation, using people that they kidnapped. But let's look at what's happening at school for now, where Ayaba couldn't help but mention that Agami is not that expressive, which is why she left Sakura Koji alone with him, much to the excitement of both girls and boys alike. As the couple were getting back to class, Agami noticed a bunch of people forcing their way inside the school. Agami rushed to the scene to prevent the horde from getting inside the school, but despite his best efforts, he was already at his limits. Fortunately for him and Sakura Koji, Professor Kanda came in to get them out of here. Before they could get to do that, Agami rushed to prevent any more of these puppets from heading to where his classmates are. He fought them with everything he could, but proved to be ultimately unsuccessful. Just as things were about to get worse, Yuki arrived just in time to save the day. To ensure the school's safety, Haikyuu decided to finally reveal that he's also a code breaker by finishing off the horde. With the crisis finally dealt with, Sakura Koji went to try to rescue Agami, to which Haikyuu told her that he's already done for. After all, this is the fate of code breakers. Or is it? Fortunately, Agami was in no mortal danger as he overworked himself to exhaustion. He'll be considered as lost once he dies from using every bit of energy in him. And since he was using it way too much lately, Sakura Koji and the others were worried that he might be. Still, Kanda had to assure Sakura Koji that Agami will be fine after some rest. Now that she's back to her ambitious donkey mode, Kanda reintroduced herself as an Eden agent in disguise, and that her job is to offer support to the young master since Agami was the lowest ranking of the code breakers. Haikyuu also proceeded to inform Sakura Koji more about the ranking of Yuuki as the third and Toki as the fourth of the bunch, while further mentioning Yuuki's freedom for his immense love for Nyanmaru. As for Haikyuu, he's code breaker 2 as well as a judge. Haikyuu also pointed out that Rui is code breaker 5. But when Sakura Koji was about to ask for the first of the bunch, Professor Kanda came in to change the topic, as she pointed out that they should consider relocating, due to danger of getting attacked now being imminent. Sakura Koji quickly agreed. Privately, however, Haikyuu informed Kanda of what she's on about. Then suddenly, Sakura Koji came with the wild idea of sheltering Agami in her place. Despite initial reluctance, Kanda gave in to the idea. After all, the girl is a part of the strongest and most preeminent Goodfellow organization in all of Japan. When Gotoko and his wife went to check on their daughter, they learned of what happened, to which they quickly agreed to shelter Agami until he makes a full recovery. As they were about to enter the guest's room, Sakura Koji's mother Yuki remembered that she allowed another friend of her daughter to stay in. It didn't take them long to figure out that it was actually Toki, where he shrunk in size. It turned out that loss may take many forms for every person with ability. Funnily enough, the whole thing was being discussed in front of Sakura Koji's mother, which was up for the latter to bluff her mother out of it. While Agami was under Kanda's care, Toki explained that he came in to check on Agami's loss, especially that Eden had ordered him to do so. Unfortunately for the shrimp, Haikyuu was able to see through his lie, while learning that he didn't even inform Eden about his own loss. Once they got to the banquet, everyone began to enjoy themselves. For Sakura Koji, she couldn't help but wonder if Haikyuu is also complicit in what other code breakers have been doing so far. Before he could even give her a proper answer, Toki came in fully drunk, which got Haikyuu to remove points off of Toki's record. Instead of abiding by Haikyuu's order, Toki began mocking the former for not having eyebrows. He only behaved when he was threatened to be spanked. While this shitshow was taking place, Yuki thanked Sakura Koji for being such a great friend for both Agami and Toki, to which she replied that she's more than happy to help her friends when they're in a tough spot. This made Yuki see her as his beloved Nyanmaru. Now that the banquet is over and Sakura Koji is helping out and taking care of Agami, the boys were on high alert of any incoming attacks. Haikyuu in particular couldn't help but note to Toki that the attack launched earlier was targeting Sakura Koji as well as Agami. She's a rare breed after all. However, Haikyuu argued that if Hitomi wanted to kidnap Sakura Koji, he would have resorted to much easier ways of doing so. So why did he not do that? Only time will tell. At first light, Agami woke up to see Sakura Koji sleeping next to him, and Kanda bowing down to him in apology. Aside from that, Agami had already figured that Hitomi was the one behind the scene. At the same time, Rui received a call from Haikyuu to come and reinforce, since Toki is lost. In the meantime, Agami was recollecting his memories as he was looking at a katana. Gotoko was quick to notice that, allowing him to borrow it. After all, Agami have seen so much misery, but he would never tolerate anyone that would dare to harm Sakura Koji in any possible way. Before Agami could muster a word, lightning struck the gate of the mansion. Hitomi has arrived to kidnap Sakura Koji. Yuki tried to save her from the former code breaker, only for Hitomi to pull an Uno reverse and beat our Nyanmaru fanboy and Agami altogether. Oh, he also electrocuted Kanda along the way just cause why not. In a last-ditch effort, Agami attacked using Gotoko's katana. But in the end, it would all be for naught. Just as Hitomi was about to leave, Haikyuu, Rui and Toki all cooperated to rescue Sakura Koji. Now that he is rescued, the code breakers decided to fight together against the Matrix. I know what you're thinking. Why would Hitomi turn against his comrades? His answer was simple. It's for revenge. This went completely against Agami's beliefs. With his lost nerf being lifted, he finally went to attack his former comrade with Toki. It would prove to be futile, since Hitomi repelled both of them in one go. After unleashing his most powerful attack of all, everyone stood helpless in the face of danger, except for Sakura Koji, who had absorbed the attack without getting affected, much to everyone's surprise. Realizing that all code breakers are here, Hitomi decided that his mission here is over. As it turned out, Hitomi's actual goal was not his former comrades, but the Prime Minister, who Yukihina had successfully abducted, much to everyone else's frustration, except for Yuuki, who has lost and transformed into a cat. But on a serious note, the code breakers were stuck in a dilemma. Even if they tried to get to the rescue of the Prime Minister, they'd be too late. According to Haikyuu, that is. For Toki, the whole matter didn't even matter due to his resentment towards his father. Rui tried to persuade him, but Toki's mind was already set. For the rest, however, they were still concerned about how they should deal with the danger that Hitomi is still imposing upon them, as well as Sakura Koji's incredible ability of absorbing attacks. Still oblivious to Sakura Koji's ability, Agami protested against the girl's self-exposure to danger. Sakura Koji, however, insisted that she'll always do so as long as it's for the sake of protecting her friends and loved ones. While Gotoko was taking care of his injured men, Haikyuu was discussing with other code breakers Hitomi's ability to control deceased people as puppets. As for his greater objective of revenge, it's still ambiguous, since Hitomi could have gotten rid of the Prime Minister outright if he wanted that. As such, Haikyuu concluded that there's more to that. Still, they couldn't figure out what Hitomi's true objective is. This has added more to their frustration. The Hitomi that was once loved and respected by all is now gone. Still, that was not going to stop Agami from eliminating evil, even if Hitomi was once good. Elsewhere, Toki was trying to reach out to where his older sister was. She was relieved to learn that her younger brother was fine. But just as Toki thought that his sister still had her memories of him, fate decided to take a U-turn and get Nenin to lose her memories of Toki once again. Still, Toki left the scene, relieved that his sister was fine regardless of her memory loss. For Agami, he couldn't stop thinking of Sakura Koji's persistence in saving others, until he overheard her parents discussing that she's still their daughter no matter what. It didn't take him long to sneak his way into their room, where he checked on Sakura Koji's album. As he was busy checking on Sakura Koji's picture, the girl came into the room. She was actually excited to show him more about her family bond and all, through her finger-lacing traditional technique. Agami was definitely impressed by how close Sakura Koji is to her family, but he still was curious as to why she doesn't have pictures of herself as a baby, to which Sakura Koji answered that she's adopted. As he stood alone to think of his life decisions, Gotoko came to talk to him more about Sakura Koji's past. She was found laid at their main gate long ago, with blood spattered all over her face, even though she was not hurt. Gotoko expressed that he still does not know of what has happened with her before, but he still does not want any harm or tragedy to come her way. As such, he wants Agami and his boys to protect Sakura Koji no matter what. Elsewhere, Rui was thinking of how close Hitomi was towards her, just like everyone else. After all, he was the one that saved her after going through a rough period. After a long night of treating everyone's wounds, Sakura Koji woke up, feeling guilty about dragging everyone into trouble for asking them to come to her place, much to Agami's disappointment. Noticing that he's here, Sakura Koji snapped back into reality. In reality, Agami couldn't help but find that Sakura Koji is bearing the guilt of a mistake of his as absurd. His thought made perfect sense, since her feelings were making her look like a fool in front of those that were trying to help her out. With the men agreeing to what Agami was saying, Sakura Koji began to get herself together, asking Daisuke to train her harder. Seeing this, Yuuki began to reminisce about being able to wrestle with Hitomi just like Sakura Koji now. Rui was also on the same page. As such, she expressed how much she believes in her former leader, just like everyone else, except for Toki, who was looking forward to knocking some sense back into Hitomi. With all their differences settled aside, the code breakers finally decided to split and search for Hitomi. During their research, Sakura Koji tried to learn more about the beef between Drake and Kendrick. Hitomi and Agami, only for the latter to refuse to answer that, before disappearing altogether. Elsewhere, Kanda discussed the powers that Sakura Koji possesses with the school council, where it turned out that the teachers have been monitoring Sakura Koji for a very long time, and that they have been avoiding to inform Kanda of that since they were suspicious of her previous contacts with Hitomi. Now that they realized that that wasn't the case, they apologized for their incorporation. That night, Rui had no leads about Hitomi's whereabouts to speak of to Hike. As for him, he argued that he's still looking for them. In reality, Rui was growing all the more suspicious of Hike's negligence towards the Prime Minister's safety, due to the series of decisions he took that led to gathering all of the code breakers around Hitomi. The die is cast, and Hike saw that there's no need for him to keep his facade. Before he could even attack Rui, however, explosions took over the city, marking the beginning of Hitomi's plan. With Rui having her hands full preventing the bridge from collapsing, Hike was free to attack her, while Yuki was watching the whole ordeal taking place in horror from afar. Not too long after, Hike got to Sakura Koji, who had been wandering around the city to look for Agami. Ever the ambitious donkey that she is, Sakura Koji agreed to follow Hike for the quote secret base unquote. By the time she figured that she got lured into a trap, it was already too late. Hike has switched his allegiance from the code breakers to Hitomi. Agami has learned of the explosions that have taken place pretty much simultaneously, with Hitomi as the main suspect behind them. This gave all the more reasons for Agami to take his former comrade down. As for Hitomi, he was watching how things are going on TV, while he was glad to let the situation play itself out. Who cares about how many people would fall as casualties? His plan is going well so far, and that's all that matters. I'm having a deja vu about this logic. Anyway, Sakura Koji was outraged at these horrible events when Hitomi came out of his room to express his surprise that Hike brought her along. After all, Sakura Koji was under protection by Hike for a very long time, and recently Agami came into the picture for the same purpose, albeit he wasn't aware of that. To assure her that he's not lying, Hitomi asked confirmation from the man who wanted to thwart his plans. Yes, it's the Prime Minister himself. After taking his silence as a yes, Hitomi expressed that he plans on doing nothing with Sakura Koji. He just wants to keep her under his wing for the time being until the end of his plan. As for why he's doing all that, Hitomi claimed that he's trying to save other code breakers. The way he intends to do so will be explained in the foreseeable future. On her way to meet Agami, Kanda couldn't help but reminisce about how Hitomi rescued her from her rough childhood, just like he did with Rui before. When she suddenly received a message about Hitomi's location, Agami was also on the same page, so they headed there. Now that the plan is already proceeding, Hitomi locked the Prime Minister away, while expressing that he does not fully trust Hike. After all, Hitomi never revealed his hideout to anyone, so how did Haikyuu find out about it? As it turned out, Haikyuu learned about it from his intelligence network. But when he learned about Hitomi's true intentions, he decided to strike colors. As such, he began by cutting Rui limb from limb to demonstrate his allegiance. To further demonstrate that, he pinned the already outraged Sakura Koji to the ground, as he expressed that the likes of her would never understand how a non-existing person would feel. This convinced Hitomi, even though he's still going to keep his guards up. By the time this performance was over, Kanda had arrived. A conflict is unavoidable now. Unable to wait for Agami, Kanda decided to take the initiative, only to find herself going against Haikyuu on her own. As for Agami, he was already on his way there to where Hitomi is, when Yuki reached out to him to inform him of Haikyuu's betrayal. Without wanting to lose more time, Agami kept on heading to his designated location with Yuki. Once they got into the building, they found Haikyuu waiting for them. The fighting began with Haikyuu beating Yuki down at first, before finding himself struggling against Agami. With neither of them being able to get the upper hand, Yuki stood and attacked once again. This gave Agami the opportunity to keep on going forward, leaving Yuki behind to deal with Haikyuu. Once Agami got to the first floor, he found Kanda waiting for him. It turned out that she's under Hitomi's full control. Agami tried to get in range to fight against Hitomi, but Kanda got in the way. She bitterly resisted Hitomi's control, but ended up shooting him. Fortunately, Agami was able to burn the incoming round. Hitomi, however, had given instructions for her to use the last round to get through her very head, leaving Agami in a precarious position for a moment, until he decided to take the fateful decision of running at Kanda with everything he got. As Kanda was about to shoot herself, Sakura Koji broke off of her rope, saving Kanda in the last possible second, while freeing her from Hitomi's spell. Impressed by this display of courage, Hitomi decided to let go of the puppy that freed Sakura Koji. But when he was asked about why he's doing these evil deeds, Hitomi mentioned all of the clocks on the wall. In fact, they were all times of death of all previous code breakers. In his own account, Hitomi wanted nothing more than beginning justice to those that died in vain. And since it was the Prime Minister that used to give them orders, he's the one that shall receive judgment for his actions. Sakura Koji tried to get him to change his mind, but Hitomi was already determined to carry on with his plans, by simply making the Prime Minister get rid of himself as part of his duties. How, you may ask? By simply claiming responsibility for all the explosions across the city. This made no sense for Agami, since Hitomi is killing innocent lives in the process. In his delusion, Hitomi was trying to create a memory for code breakers that their deaths will never go unnoticed. As such, he wanted Agami to join forces with him. Believing that people that kill innocents in the name of justice are evil, Agami refused Hitomi's offer, burning all the clocks on the wall. With Hitomi's refusal to leave the path of evil, a fight between the two became imminent. Their clash was interrupted by Yukihina, who took the Prime Minister and began to attack Agami and then Sakura Koji. It was thanks to Toki's intervention that her life was saved. Despite that, no one was able to stop Yukihina and Hitomi from saving the Prime Minister. Still, Yukihina had the courtesy to inform them that they should leave the building at once, since it's filled with explosives. Still, Sakura Koji followed through, despite all protests from Agami and Toki. While the building was crumbling, Yukihina, Hitomi and Haikyuu took both the Prime Minister and Sakura Koji with them to their next destination. When he was 16, Hitomi was appointed by Eden as Code Breaker 6. In his prime, he was performing greatly, so much that he was getting praise from both Eden and the Prime Minister. Hitomi was an optimistic person who looked forward to a world where children can always smile. 4 years later, he witnessed the loss of his first comrade. Despite his promotion, Hitomi was devastated, and yet he decided to keep up the hard work for the sake of a better future. 6 years later, Hitomi began his first operation as Code Breaker 3, accompanied by Code Breaker 6 against people that rebelled against Eden. The operation went pretty badly, where Code Breeders 1, 2, and 6 were eliminated. Frustrated by the death of his comrades, Hitomi gave the fight everything he got. Although it was a rough fight, he was ultimately successful in defeating his opponent. While discussing the course of the previous operations, Hitomi began to question Eden's understanding of the Code Breaker's abilities. After all, Code 6 Second's ability spiraled out of control in the middle of the operation. Haikyuu agreed to look further into the matter, but not before letting Hitomi know of his promotion to Code Breaker 1. As such, Hitomi promised that he'll never let any more Code Breakers get taken down under his watch. This new team was composed of himself as Code Breaker 1, Haikyuu as Code Breaker 2, Tenpoint Yuuki as Code Breaker 3, Fujiwara Toki as Code Breaker 4, Hakioji Rui as Code Breaker 5, and Agami Rei as Code Breaker 6. Under his guidance, his team was performing incredibly well. Agami in particular stood out as the most interesting of the bunch, even though he was too risky due to how hung up on eliminating evil he was. On one of their missions, Agami managed to take cover from a trap. Before he could do anything, Toki dealt with the threat. Hitomi, on the other hand, didn't like that they were letting their guard down. as well as Agami's abandonment of his task of rescuing a child, pointing out that he should not be so fixated on eliminating evil. When they sat alone to talk, Hitomi found Agami's fixation on his duty to be amusing, reminding him that a code breaker's duty includes protecting innocence as well, even if it meant dying for that purpose. While Agami was trying to process what Hitomi had been telling him, the latter went lost, leaving Agami to carry him back home. The next mission that Hitomi's team will have will be a tough one, especially that it'll include one of the rebels that ran away in his last mission with his previous team. Hitomi was well aware of the difficulty of the incoming task, but he still had to do it. Once the operation started, everyone was ruthless in their execution. Hitomi was able to finally meet his nemesis there, where the rest of the team followed up. The rebel tried to intimidate them verbally at first, but he was surprised that he's facing punks that would dare to talk back at him. Angered by their indifference in the face of danger, the rebel began to attack with everything he got. Just as he thought he got rid of Hitomi, the rebel was stunned to find that Hitomi's juniors were yawning, because Hitomi was fine and ready to deliver the coup de grace, leaving his opponent to burn himself on his own. For Hitomi, his greatest joy was the fact that his teammates were not hurt. Teasing his teammates and seeing them smile must have meant the world to Hitomi at that moment. He was hopeful that with this team, no more code breakers will ever die. After a sparring session with Agami one evening, Hitomi was feeling ecstatic, so much so he decided to rest, with Agami following suit. It'll prove to be the last genuine moment of happiness he'll ever see. The next morning, he was shocked when he got the result of the research that Haikyuu conducted on Eden. It turned out that the code breakers lose their lives once they reach a breaking point of using their special powers, more known as code. And once that happens, they lose control over it, and their lives will go with it. What devastated Hitomi more was the fact that Eden was very likely aware of that, and yet they decided to turn a blind eye over the matter. Later that day, Agami reached out to Hitomi, where he was lost in thoughts. He couldn't help but inform his junior partner that once the Tokyo Tower is finished, many people will get to visit it and have a fun time. Agami didn't understand what Hitomi meant, but still proceeded to hand over the folder of the next job to Hitomi. With the results of the research in mind, Hitomi asked Agami if he wanted to move far away with him, before changing his mind. After all, he can't afford to drag Agami with him in a problem where Eden will hound him to death. As such, Hitomi made the fateful decision of parting ways with his team, since he didn't want them to get a death sentence for learning about code. And publicly, however, Hitomi told his junior that he'll be looking forward to their next job. This will be the last time the two will ever meet as comrades. The next day, Agami woke up to the shocking news of Hitomi's attempt to assassinate the Prime Minister, turning him into a wanted fugitive. Back to present time, Hitomi made his public declaration of his will to execute the Prime Minister in the next hour, as well as 50,000 more people as a result of bombs placed all over the country. The clock is ticking, and it's up to Agami to put a conclusive end to this crisis. While Toki and the others were looking for where Agami is, explosions were taking over the entire country. For instance, Yuuki tried to figure out how many bombs are and where they are, only to be shocked by the massive amount of them. In Hitomi's belief, it'll be nigh impossible to deactivate all bombs in an hour. Meanwhile, Gotoko and his cult were on the run for the bombs' Sakura Koji's locations. Once the bombs had been located, Gotoko ordered Daisuke to contact all other bosses of the cult across Japan at once. Authorities, as well as code breakers, have also got to a similar conclusion about the Prime Minister's location. As such, they decided to head there immediately, except for Yuuki, who preferred to stay behind to protect civilians. As for Haikyuu, he was secretly sending messages to authorities, Gotoko's cult, and his fellow code breakers about the locations of Sakura Koji, the Prime Minister, and of course the bombs, until suddenly Hitomi came into the monitoring room to check on him. Fortunately for Haikyuu, he managed to deceive Hitomi into believing that he's making sure that no intruders come in. Just as Hitomi began to reminisce about the good old days with Haikyuu, warning signals rang all over the room as Agami got into the tower, and now he's on his way to Hitomi. Haikyuu tried to intercept him, but Hitomi didn't let him, believing that it'll be best to see Agami's full potential to get to where they are. It didn't take Agami a long time to get to where Sakura Koji and Hitomi were, pointing out that this place was special to him, since it'll be a place where families, girlfriends, and all would all come here to have fun. Still, Agami did not care about any of that now, since people's lives are on the line, and he must get Hitomi to turn off the bombs. After some back and forth, negotiations broke down completely. Now it's up to the strongest to impose his will by force. Agami pulled his sword and infused it in his blue flames. He couldn't inflict any hit on Hitomi, but he didn't get damaged by his electricity either. Hitomi was quick to understand what trick Agami has been using, so he decided to use his electricity to attack from all directions. Still, Agami got the hang of it despite the intensity of the attacks. Realizing that he's not going to give up that easily, Hitomi intensified his attacks further, to the point he got Sakura Koji to be freed. When he got closer to check on Agami, he learned that Agami believed that Hitomi turned his back on them by trying to assassinate the Prime Minister without further ado. This could not be further from the truth, as Hitomi went to talk to his superior about the problem with code, end and all, only to be met with a firm rejection from the Prime Minister, which was backed up by the guns of multiple bodyguards. Left with no other options, Hitomi had to get rid of the agents in order to escape. As such, the entire story of him attempting to get rid of that shitty politician was a false information from Eden. Eventually, Hitomi began to explain that he wanted code breakers to live a normal life, which is a demand that Eden firmly refused, opting to use them as unknown entities that could be easily disposed of. Amidst the chaos that is taking over the country, Yukihina went ahead to free the children with special abilities, just so they will never be used as disposable research subjects for Eden. For Sakura Koji, she agreed that Hitomi's reasoning is sound, but his means to demonstrate it is very wrong, especially that he's hurting people that he once worked so desperately to protect. Hearing this, Hitomi answered that these people never deserve to be protected in the first place, thus they deserve their judgment. By then, Yuuki was doing his best to deactivate as many bombs as possible, while Toki and Kanda were about to get to the elevator when Hike came out of it. It turned out that he's not going to let anyone get to where Agami and Hitomi are fighting. Hearing this, Toki got emotional out of nowhere. Hike felt touched by this, until Toki began to outright mock Hike for being so naive, before proceeding and fighting his fellow comrade. Hike was repelling Toki's attacks in all his flash and prestige, before activating his own version of the Cage Bunshin no Jutsu. Except it's flamboyant as shit. This was annoying for me as it was for Toki, to the point he got himself to match the original Hike move for move. Just like Goku fighting Vegeta, or so it seemed. Hike was actually behind a pillar, waiting for Toki to go lost, until Puppy jumped on his face, giving Toki a room to finally counterattack. But that aside, Gotoko's cult were also seemingly doing well in locating bombs and deactivating them. Authorities were skeptical of them initially, but seeing how genuine they were, they decided to assist in ensuring civilians' safety. Still, they were lacking so many men to secure the citizens, as well as very little time to deactivate the rest of the many bombs. Elsewhere, Yukihina was shocked to find that a certain someone is still alive, and that is now going to put an end to his rampage. It's Rui. The fighting with Yukihina was bitter. Although she was pinning him on the defensive for most of the time, Yukihina was in no way weak. For Agami, he still tried to get Hitomi to deactivate the bombs. Hitomi refused, as he kept on bragging about his hopes that people will yearn for people with special abilities to save them. Before proceeding to electrocute his junior, that is. It only took him the puppy biting Hitomi's leg to stop hurting Agami, until he tossed them both. However, Agami still insisted that he appeal to Hitomi to stop killing innocent civilians, only to get electrocuted once again. Hitomi claimed that all the killings that Eden had done through code breakers were merely giving it the upper hand. For example, their order to get rid of Shidru was done for the sole purpose of helping him out. The same applies to G Falcon. As such, he offered to Agami to join ranks with him to fight evil. To his shock, Agami refused. He acknowledged that Eden is evil, but through killing civilians, Hitomi isn't much different from Eden. As such, he decided to keep on fighting evil until his very last breath. Since the answer didn't please him, Hitomi attacked Agami once more. This time, Agami couldn't even respond properly since he went lost. Not wanting to see her friend losing his life, Sakura Koji managed to gather what's left of her strength to defend Agami. However, Hitomi remained so fixated on his goal that he didn't mind getting rid of Sakura Koji with his own hands. Meanwhile, Gotoko managed to arrive at the source of the bomb's source just in time. However, two kids with special abilities stood in their way of saving the country. Realizing how similar they are to Sakura Koji when she was a child, Gotoko threw the crowbar he was holding, hoping that the kids will respond in kind to his peaceful persuasion. Unfortunately, that didn't work on them. Back to Toki, he seemed to be able to reach out to where his father was, where he had no feelings of sympathy towards him. Now the countdown is gone with a single minute left. The fate of the entire country is hanging in the balance. Once the countdown was over, Hitomi was surprised to see that his plan had failed. It turned out that Hike got Yuuki to cooperate with him in destroying the center that controls bombs, thus saving the entire country. To make matters worse, the kids with special abilities have been relocated to a safer place by Rui, under Hike's guidance. With Yuuki's arrival, and realizing that their plan is in shambles, Yukina vanished into thin air. Frustrated by this turn of events, Hitomi attacked Hike. Just as Hike mentioned how his counterpart's plans had failed, Hitomi had one last trick up his sleeve. He has intentionally chosen Tokyo Tower as his location just so he can use his super ability to reactivate all the bombs across the country, in case anything goes wrong. Simultaneously, the Prime Minister began to beg Toki to untie him. Toki, however, opted to pull the entire antenna with his father and let it float in thin air. Amused by his father's disgraceful sight, he decided to set him free, only for the Prime Minister to begin blackmailing his son into obeying him so his sister would never turn into a code breaker herself. By then, Hitomi was on the verge of succeeding in his backup plan, when Rui covered the entire building with her shadow, urging Hitomi to stop. With Yuuki's arrival, the code breakers finally found themselves able to prevent Hitomi from proceeding with his plans, frustrated that none of his comrades was willing to understand how frustrating it was that code breakers have been dying without ever being noticed. Just for the sake of civilians living a peaceful life, Hitomi began to attack anyone that came in his way, including Sakura Koji. Seeing that his once beloved leader has completely fallen into evil, Agami removed the ring on his left thumb to unleash the full might of his flames. Seeing this, Hitomi tried to attack Agami, expecting similar results. This time, however, Agami covered himself entirely in flames, nullifying any effects that Hitomi's attacks had. Shocked by this, Hitomi tried to unleash his ultimate attack, that despite their best efforts, none of the code breakers could stop it, except for Agami's flames, which absorbed the attack like it was nothing. Desperately, Hitomi tried to carry out with his plan, only for Agami to nullify it once more, and began to attack Hitomi in earnest, thus setting a conclusive end to this crisis. Hitomi is defeated, but at the cost of Agami's full energy. Realizing that he had failed, Hitomi tried to get his energy to proceed in a last-ditch effort to continue his plan. This time, he reached Code End. His powers have spiraled out of control and began to attack him instead. Seeing that everyone knew about Code End, Hitomi was relieved to see that he's not going to die in solitude. He expressed how much he wanted to change Eden through many peaceful ways, but the certainty of his Code End left him with no luxury of time. As such, he thought that it'll be with it to spare people with special abilities this horrific fate. In the end, it would all be for naught, since his plans came crumbling down before his very eyes. He tried to get his revenge by getting rid of the Prime Minister, but Agami stood in his way, reminding him of how great a person he was before with every punch he gave him. By then, it became evident to everyone how Hitomi took the brunt of the struggle on his back, while refusing to contact any of the other code breakers to not get them prosecuted. But seeing how everyone was concerned about him, and how they were all gathering around him, Hitomi was relieved, reminiscing about how Yuuki used to be the first to bulldog him, Toki for being the first to keep Kanda safe, praising Rui for coming out unharmed against Yukihina, while still choosing to believe in Haikyuu when he was acting the most suspicious. As for Agami, Hitomi expressed how astonished he was by his full potential, although he found him to be lenient, much to Agami's frustration, as he didn't want his former comrade to be defeated by him, urging Hitomi to live to remain the hero of justice that he always wanted to be. Hitomi wished he could do that, but realizing that he's near his end, he decided to pass on his will to live as heroes of justice that would live in daylight for all his friends, Yuuki, Kanda, Toki, Rui, Agami, and of course Haikyuu. The moment got ruined because of a certain politician that I wish I could throw off of a cannon though, as he claimed that people will be terrified of the presence of people with super abilities, thus concluding that code breakers will continue to serve him in Eden just like they have always been. Frustrated by this answer, Sakura Koji protested that he was the one that appointed Hitomi, only for him now to be claimed as a useless moron that turned into a T-word. Hearing this, Hitomi got furious so much that he was on the verge of outright disposing of the Prime Minister if it wasn't for Agami and the others to stop him, ensuring him that they'll take it from here as he should rest, promising that they'll never forget his great legacy as long as he doesn't add any more evildoing to it. Hitomi felt proud of how Agami had grown, before finally breathing his last breath. Everyone was left grieving for the loss of such a great person that impacted their lives positively, except for one shitty politician, which Toki punched out of anger at his ignorance. As for Agami, although he was the most saddened of the bunch, he also made it clear that Hitomi got what he deserved for all the evil things he did. For the public, there were those that were glad that the Mad Bomber has been eliminated, thanks to the police that took full credit for the outcome, much to Toki's sadness. For the Prime Minister, he couldn't thank Haikyuu enough for the role he played in taking down Hitomi, despite his modesty. He also hoped that Agami's power could serve as a way to go up against the Seki, who had learned just now of Agami's vulnerability, namely Sakura Koji. The Prime Minister hoped that using her, he could extinguish Agami's flames. As he kept on complaining about how much of a hassle Hitomi was for him to deal with, Karma came into the scene and got that shitty politician to burst in blood, much to Haikyuu's relief. The next morning, Sakura Koji missed having Agami waiting for her at her front door. She tried looking out for him but to no avail. Instead, Yuuki came in, informing her that Agami is now gone, ensuring her that he'll always be by her side if she ever needed help. As Yuuki left, Sakura Koji found Rui waiting for her. Along the way, she learned that all code breakers were being called by Eden over the Hitomi crisis. But now that the whole issue is over, everyone has their own separate jobs. Before parting ways, Rui thanked Sakura Koji for everything, while making sure to tell her that her mother's cooking was great. Sakura Koji was impressed to find that Rui had such a stunning smile, much to the latter's dismay. As she sat alone, Sakura Koji realized that she'd been left alone after learning of everyone's departure, until Toki showed up. For him, he couldn't resist letting go of Sakura Koji's vanguard, which got him the justice he deserves. Still, Toki had news about Agami, who had left for his next location. Noticing how close she is to the park where she first saw Agami, Sakura Koji asked the bus driver to stop. As she rushed to the park, Toki bid her farewell. Much to her surprise, she found kids playing with lots of bouquets of white flowers instead of Agami. As such, Sakura Koji promised herself that Agami's existence, just like all other code breakers, will never be forgotten. Just as everyone began a new chapter in their lives,